Department of Education. Trump has said he's going to abolish the Department of Education, and it does seem like what Trump has said during the campaign, he takes seriously and he wants to live up to, he wants to do. He said he was going to do tariffs. He's doing tariffs. He said he would, cozy up to Russia and get a deal between Russia and Ukraine and force that deal down Ukraine's throat. That's exactly what he's doing. We did notice yesterday that I think I mentioned this, that the United States is now delivering military aid to Ukraine again. The shipments from Poland into the Ukraine are starting up again. Intelligence is flowing again. And even private companies who stopped providing satellite information, private satellite information, to Ukraine at the request of the U.S. government have started providing the information again to Ukraine. Ukraine, hard to tell, Ukraine has taken some significant losses on the ground in the last couple of days, particularly in the Kursk, in the area that they took inside Russia. Hard to tell how much of that is related to this blindness that no intelligence. So it could be that all of this was just a charade to allow Russia to gain an advantage in their effort to regain control of Kursk by blinding the Ukrainians, and the Trump administration helped them get that done. I hope that's not the case, but it certainly could be. Department of Education, Trump is committed to shutting it down, and I think he will. And today they announced that they were firing basically half the people that work at the department, about 4,100 people. It's part of reducing the federal workforce, but I think more importantly in this case, it's part of disbanding the entire Department of Education. Now, disbanding the Department of Education probably requires an act of Congress, but what they can do is just empty it out of all content. Now, Linda McMahon, who's the CEO of World Wrestling Federation or something like that, she is the education secretary, very, very qualified. But maybe at shutting stuff down, she's very qualified. Maybe she is committed to shutting it down, which I think is great. I'm all for shutting down most of the government agencies and departments. I mean, more than most, probably 75% of them at least. Here's the problem, though, that we're not actually shutting down the Department of Education. We're just reshuffling its responsibilities. Like, none of the laws that say the federal government must do X, Y, Z vis-a-vis education have been repealed. If the Department of Education doesn't do them, then somebody else in government will have to do it. Maybe they'll shift them to other departments, but it doesn't matter. The things that are supposed to be done by legislation will be done. I don't know, standardized testing, No Child Left Behind. Those are pieces of legislation mandated by Congress. So by shutting down the Department of Education, again, all for it, great, fire a bunch of people, somebody's still going to follow through with all those things. Otherwise, the executive branch is not following the law. One of the biggest things the Department of Education does is it grants student loans, and it does all the scholarships and all the grants. Is the government going to stop doing student loans? I mean, that would be amazing. That would be the single best thing you could do to lower tuition. Force parents and students to go to banks and get loans where you're supposed to get a loan, from the bank, not from the government. And then the bank will say, what are you going to major in? And the kid goes, gender studies, I'm super excited. And the bank will go, yeah, but you'll never be able to pay back the loan because you'll never get a job with that degree. No, I'm not giving you a loan. I mean, imagine if banks started determining what majors get loans and what don't. That would rationalize our educational system quite well. But that's not on the agenda, as far as I know. I'm all for 100%. No more student loans from the government. The government is not a lending agency. It's not a bank. How about This will be radical. How about no more scholarships? None. Not for poor kids, not for veterans' kids, not for any kids. U.S. government does not do education. Now, that would be meaningful. But what is going to happen is they're going to move student loans to Treasury. They're going to move the scholarship stuff to Treasury or somebody, or they'll create a new department or something. And scholarships will have to be privatized, just like a lot of other things. As the government gets out of the way, will have to be privatized. And loans will have to be private. By the way, it's only recently that student loans have been completely nationalized, and that is under the Obama administration. What did the government take over all student loans? Before that, they did some, they did a little bit, but banks did most of them. They went all in with Obama. Well, it's time to go all out. Now, that would be interesting. That would be important. That would change the dynamics of government and the relationship with the private sector. And leave the private sector free and leave our educational institutions free. And education institutions would get a lot less money from the government. That would give them more freedom. So it just would be huge if the government stopped giving student loans. I mean, but you'd also have to, to get the government out of education, you have to repeal, Title IX of the Civil Rights Act that says you can't discriminate. And you remember that was applied to sports, and the universities have to invest as much in women's sports as in men's sports, and all of that kind of stuff. All of that should be gone. Government should have no say in how universities are run and what they do and how they function. And to do that, you have to get rid of all these pieces of legislation. I know you don't like that word. I know this administration doesn't like that word. Legislation. And then, do away with the Department of Education. Zero it out. It would have been so much easier to do under Reagan, because Department of Education was brand new then. It had just been created under Jimmy Carter, and it didn't have that many employees, wasn't doing that many things yet, certainly wasn't doing student loans. And Reagan promised to abolish the Department of Education, but he put in charge William Bennett, who was this staunch conservative and anti-education as was being done back then. And Bennett grew the Department of Education instead of eliminating it. By the time he was done, the Department of Education was bigger. Manses says, that sounds a bit extreme, Dr. Brook. Yes, it is. I'm an extremist, if you haven't noticed. Very extreme. I am very, very, very extreme. I am for shrinking government to only protecting individual rights. Get them out of education. And by the way, I'm for doing that at the state and local level as well. So privatize all education. Quickly, immediately, as fast as possible. Anyway, we should all celebrate the Department of Education closing. It's great. Again, it's not happening yet. The functions of the Department of Education are not closing, and that we should not be happy about. And generally, look at the details. Don't look at the rhetoric. Don't look at the hype. Don't look at the BS. Don't look at the Doge website that says that they've cut $105 billion, because they haven't. At best, you could argue they've had a $29.9 billion impact, but even that's not accurate. The accurate number is probably closer to $9 billion. There's actually now a website that tracks Doge's claim, what it's actually done, and then the net effect on government spending. And right now it's $8.6 billion. As I told you before, February spending was higher than January and higher than last February. And the House just passed a budget that is basically a continuation of Biden's budget. So nothing has changed in terms of the government spending. Nothing. Doge can make a lot of noise. They can claim, they can argue, but they haven't done anything. Zero, zilch, nada, because Congress has the power of the purse.